Hello, this is Charles Epstein, host of the X Factor podcast. Today I'm joined by David Foote of the eponymous Foote Partners for the second in a series of talks David and I are having on what we're calling the big shift. Several tectonic changes sweeping through the workforce, driven by several key high momentum technologies, including, of course, AI. In the first podcast, we discussed the previous four industrial revolutions, going back to the first one in the 1700s, that was chiefly powered by the emergence of the efficient steam engine. When David and I spoke earlier, we focused on the massive generational workforce shift that is happening and what each generation brings to the table, with all the attendant challenges of having to manage workers with distinctly different work styles, learning styles, goals, and values. And before we get to it with David today, the rest of this series will examine four other major shifts in technology investments, job shifts, a shift emphasizing soft skills, and today we'll be examining the shifts in supply versus demand, and especially pay for tech skills. As with all the pods in this series, this should be particularly illuminating for the HR pros in our listening audience who want to get out in front of the trends David and his team have identified that are shaping the future of work. Having said that, David, hello.
Hey, it's good to be back. How
Yes.
are you doing, Charles?
I'm doing well. Good to see you, David. This is sort of an ongoing conversation. It feels like these podcasts were just sort of hitting record. It's like one flowing conversation we've been having these many months, actually going back several years. You know, you wanted to talk about skill shifts before first looking at how jobs and the tech investment landscape are changing, which seems a bit horse before the cart-ish, if you will. Share with our listeners and with me your thinking here.
Well, have you noticed that there's nobody, I wouldn't say nobody's talking about jobs these days, but if you read any articles on what's happening right now and their focus is on, the workforce and people, they talk about skills. And this has been because, we've been in business 26 years now, and we only look at the tech workforce. We only look at jobs. We only look at skills, everything that has to do with, the human side, which is very much driven by the tech side. Companies have always told us, look, I've got a budget. We have a strategy. We have to build this stuff. It could be a product, could be a service. They're always talking about skills. I mean, they said, I have to get a certain concentration of skills at the right bench strength or I'm screwed. And I've got the budget. So I have to move really quickly. So, if you went out and just looked at people, hiring people that had these skills, it would take you months and months and months, and they don't have that kind of time. So what they do is, many will hire consultants, again, because they need to get a certain bench strength, certain type of skill in, or they'll encourage their workforce to train, retrain, reshuffle, but they have to move quickly. And to give you an idea of how quickly I think we're talking about moving, and just this general theme of why you need agility and flexibility in your workforce, is that over the, more than 50% of all revenues that will be generated over the next 5 years are expected to come from businesses and products and services that are not in existence today.
50%, did you say?
50. That
That's
comes
crazy.
from McKinsey and Company.
Wow.
Last year. And that's think about that. That's how quick things are moving. So we're preparing for a future that we can't even see yet. But we can focus on what we're doing right now, and then we can focus into the near future. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, the kinds of skills companies are looking for, or again, I should not say again, but let me explain where some of this research comes from. So about 25 years ago, and this is for the people in the audience who are HR executives, particularly in compensation and total rewards. So one of the ways that we have to measure things, looking at the tech workforces, we do compensation studies, and we're very well known for our compensation studies. And so we get data from about between 4,000 or 5,000 employers. In about 1999, they started sending us not just salaries, but skills premiums they were paying workers. And we had never seen this before. Why would you pay somebody outside of salary for a tech skill? Wouldn't that be part of what they do? And it turns out that the problem that was being created is we saw a lot of multidimensionality in jobs. So you would have software engineers working in a data center and software engineers working in, an e-commerce group, or programmers working in different parts of the business. And at the end of the day, a programmer and a software engineer, they all do the same thing. It's just that if you're working in a digital product group or an e-commerce group or on the cloud platform or in, advanced data analytics, what you're doing requires a slightly different set of skills, additional skills. So what companies were doing, were saying, well, from an administrative point of view, I'm a compensation person, we have to grade these people and figure out what to pay them, and we can't even find these jobs in salary surveys. That was the big problem. These jobs were not defined anywhere. They were just existing jobs that had a different kind of angle to it. So companies started, I think, as we thought, as a short-term solution, well, why don't we just, grade them according to, here's a level 2 or level 3 software engineer or level 4, programmer. And the fact that, they have a Python skill, then we'll pay them a little extra for having that Python skill, because that's why we really are using them in that part of the business. They have particular skills, and the list is even much longer in software engineering, because that goes to platforms, frameworks, processes, how much they understand the customer, their ability to not just code, but to, strategically think ahead. And so it was just a lot easier to say, well, we'll grade them like we do all the other software engineers, but we'll pay them a little more for these skills that make them slightly more multidimensionality. Have you ever played baseball?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, usually you have to choose a position to play, your first base, your second base.
Why would you assume that I, as an American male of a certain age, would not have played baseball? We need to discuss that offline, Dave.
Well, the point I'm making is that you need to specialize. But you also need people that can play several positions.
Shortstop, third, and center field, just so you know. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, there you go. If you can play third base, you can play center field, and also you can pitch. If you're late in the game and all your pitchers are used up, you can actually come in and pitch, because you were a state champion pitcher in high school. You were a pitcher in college, but when you got to the majors, you became a third baseman. Well, that is kind of like in technology. If you are a software developer and you can work on the Google Cloud platform, but you can also work on the AWS Cloud platform and the Microsoft Azure platform, that makes you more valuable. But still, for sure.
It's sort of like in old parlance, I don't think they use this anymore, downwardly compatible. You can do one thing, you can do some of those other things that sort of are subsets of that in a sense.
Exactly. And so, that's what's got. So we started collecting this information. We didn't think we'd be doing it for longer than maybe 2 or 3 years. We thought it was just a short-term solution. But I may surprise you in telling you that now I think we came out with our first pay index for skills and certifications in 1999. In 1999, it's now 2024. We've updated that sucker more than 100 times, because we update it every 90 days for 25 years. Yeah. So what we learned from it is, and I've always said,
are those updating cycles getting shorter and shorter?
Well, no, we do it quarterly.
Oh, you do it quarterly. Okay.
Yeah, we do it quarterly, so it might surprise you that, or it may not surprise you that, by looking, what I will always say, I said it in the first podcast, I said in this one, I'm going to say it in the third, fourth, and fifth, and any podcast we do from now on, follow the money. It doesn't matter what people say, follow the money. So by following the money, we see that they're investing in particular certified, non-certified skills. If that is going up in value and paying above average, that's a good one to have. That tells us a story about what's happening in the marketplace, particularly when we group skills into AI skills, cloud skills, digital transformation skills, security skills. It tells us a lot about what's going on. It also tells us a little bit about the hot vendors in the marketplace, because a lot of certifications are tied to vendors. A lot of non-certified skills are not. They're agnostic. They're vendor independent. But, that's why we do that. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about today, not a lot, but we're going to be focusing on this pay index
Yeah,
as a
no, good.
measurement.
Yeah, no, excellent. By the way, another little historical footnote. You mentioned Follow the Money. I believe it's the 50th anniversary of the partnership when it began of Woodward and Bernstein.
Oh,
Can't let that go unremarked upon. Um,
50. Wow.
50, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. In fact, Woodward just brought out, I think it's his 20 something book. I'm not sure. And it's the first one we actually dedicated to his partner, longstanding partner, called Bernstein. Very interesting. And apparently they still talk at least 3 times a week, but that's an entirely different rabbit hole. And let's not go there. You know, David, Foote Partners just came out with a report that found that volatility in pay for IT skills in October is up more than 50% from July, and it's also the highest quarterly volatility that you've reported since the beginning of 2012. That's a huge increase. And for almost 1,400 IT skills and certifications your firm is measuring in this benchmark research, that's pretty inclusive of the entire marketplace for the most important IT skills, which is, I believe, something I got directly from that report. First, what does pay volatility mean? And second, what's behind this major change?
Yeah, so we're tracking pay right now for almost 1,400 certified, non-certified skills. Pay volatility is that from quarter to quarter, like what's happening from January to March, and then from April to June, and then from July to October, and then from end of September, and then October, is that those are very short cycles, 90 days. So we're looking at, well, what percent of these, almost 1,400 skills and certifications did not stay the same in value? It actually changed in market value. And by that, I mean, companies usually pay them as a bonus, and they're usually calculated as a percent of base pay. So they'll say, oh, we're going to give you another, 10% for that skill you have or that certification. If they're making $100,000 a year, then that's 10,000. If they're making 50,000, and that's 5,000. So it's usually the equivalent percent of base pay. So that's how it's reported to us. That's how we, report it to the people who, use this report. So that's what skills pay is. It's amazing to me that in this last, since we've been doing this forever, we tracked quarter to quarter the percent of skills and certifications that did not stay the same. They either went up or they went down over 90 days. Do you know, in the last 90 days, if you look at the last quarter, that's, July through October, and compare that to, April through June, volatility increased 55%. That's crazy. The last time we saw it was like 36% of all the skills and certifications, almost like 280, I think it was, somewhere around there, changed in value. That's crazy. The last time we saw volatility this high was in the beginning of 2012.
Were there any parallels?
Well, I'm not surprised by it because, what this is all about, basically, and it was true in 2012 and it's true now in a different way, is that most companies are chasing new technology. They're scrambling to find skills. They want to retrain workers, encourage them, say, look, here's a set of skills that we need, and they can be very, very specific. Some of them certified, some of them not, that we need in this organization. If you'd like to make more money, we may be willing to pay you a skills premium if you want to add this to your technology or process tool belt. And so, but it's just as I said before, in this whole big shift, nobody has time. You have to do these things quickly. And as I pointed out before, I put it in over the next 5 years, 50% of all revenues coming from things that don't exist today. That seems to be slow over 5 years. What companies are doing, they're operating in very short cycles. They're operating in quarterly cycles, half-year cycles, one-year cycles. Their budgets, usually are computed or adjusted every year. But if I gave you $5 million, Charles, and I said to you, you have to build this, but it's got to be done in 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. But here's $5 million. Then if that works, here's another $25 million. And then the next phase of this has to be done in the next 3 months. I mean, you would do anything to get that done, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, the idea is that this volatility is speaking to the point that companies are, in ferocious competition to be able to reshuffle, resize their workforces.
Do you expect this volatility to continue? Because it seems that we're looking at a pretty lengthy period of uncertainty.
Yes. Well, really, most companies, what they're doing now is chasing new tech, because your ability to use technology to either increase revenues, profitability, market share, or customer satisfaction, that's what this is all about. And things are moving very quickly. So if somebody gave you a budget, Charles, if I gave you a budget of $5 to $10 million, I said, here's a budget, but you need to complete this work in three weeks. And then after that, if that goes well, here's another 20 million. And then you've got, 2 months to do that. You don't have time to hire people. What you need to do is you'll hire some consultants to get the work going, and then you'll, entice your workforce. You'll dangle money, skills premiums in front of them to say, look, who wants to make more money here? We'll give you a bonus for those of you who can show expertise in the following skills. They could be technology skills. They could be process skills, be framework skills, might be some certifications, encouraging, because companies are needing to retrain, reshuffle. In fact, it was a major, today in the New York Times appeared a very interesting opinion piece written by the fellow, he's an MIT professor who just won the Nobel Prize. The title of the article is America is Sleepwalking into the Economic Storm. And it's about, and it's very interesting. It's about three sort of trends right now. One is the aging workforce. One is the adoption of AI. And the other is sort of how globalization is shifting right now. And how America, whereas companies like Germany, Japan, and South Korea have very successfully brought automation into their manufacturing processes and very deftly trained workers who were automated out of jobs into more sophisticated jobs, or in the automobile industry, it could be into repair, quality assurance, maintenance, and things like that they've been very successful in this. They've grown their productivity hugely. There's a lot of evidence right now that America is way behind and not paying attention to training workers to work alongside AI. We've talked about this before. We'll continue to talk about it. Is that, he's making the point that we could really screw up. And if you look at, the history of how we in the future, in the past, have, like Henry Ford, the secret sauce of Henry Ford's innovation of car factories wasn't simply more widespread use of better machinery, but it was a whole range of technical tasks workers were trained for, such as repair and maintenance. Are we doing a good job right now of training people in 100 AI skills that they need to work alongside artificial intelligence? Right. And we're not. And this is a call to action. He's saying it's an economic storm. And he even mentions that none of the presidential candidates are talking about it either. Like nobody's discussing this issue in a public forum. So he's writing this opinion piece about it. And, he's really pointing out, I guess, the speed of change and how agility and flexibility and having the right training in your workforce is exactly what's going to get us moving forward. And as this AI, train just chugs down the track, they're saying AI will not really mature until the mid-2030s, Charles. That's that it's going much slower. The adoption of AI is going much slower than we think. We listen to
I wonder, I wonder at some point if that's going to be driven by the pace of adoption or just simply by the inexorable pace of AI. And that's not all of a sudden to get all doomer-ish and existential. You know what I mean? I think the technology is advancing that I think it's going to create its own problems as well as some opportunities, and people are just going to have to grab a hold and figure it out. As far as our politicians and as far as the whole political class, I just think they've historically been behind technology, and by behind it, I mean in support of. They've just not been out in front of it, and I think AI is almost just a completely different thing. So it may actually be a heightened problem, but it really does tee up the next question I have for you, David. Clearly, a lot of ITs are going up in value. Many are going down, and this is happening over relatively short and shorter periods of time. Where do AI skills fit into this?
Well, we track, trying to think how many we have here. We're tracking about 30, 35 non-certified AI skills. And whereas if we look at the general population, if we look at all 1,400 skills and certifications, it's currently 710 non-certified skills and 638 certified skills. If you look at what they did in the last, 3 months, we're talking about like 0.5%, like the market value of the average, pay premium for a skill, maybe, up about 0.5%. It's a very small amount. There's a lot of, up and down. There's a lot of volatility, but if you look at just the value of these skills, they haven't changed more than, 0.5%. What's considered to be a very strong growth would be anything 1% or over such a period of, say, 3 months. If you look at the market basket of AI skills we have over the last quarter, just 3 months, the average market value of this market basket of AI skills has grown more than 2%, 2.2%. And if you look over the last 6 months, it's almost 4%. These are massive numbers over very short a period of time. And if you look at the ones that are the highest paying right now, and again, I don't define these skills. Companies actually define these skills and say, well, we're paying between the equivalent of 18 to 23% of base pay as a bonus, and we're averaging about 21% for deep learning. That's the number one highest paying skill, AI skill right now, along with convolutional neural network. The next group that are paying somewhere between 17 to 22 and averaging about 20 are large language models and the tuning, LLM tuning. It's neural networks, it's natural language processing. And then the next level down from there, again, earning about somewhere between 15 to 21% and averaging about 18 to 19, are machine learning, a general market basket of artificial intelligence. Some companies just put all the tool sets and all the skills into one big, bin, call it artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence for AI ops, it's called AI ops, IT operations. And then a tool called Keras, continuous integration skills, and Google TensorFlow. So it's a long list, and I'm not going to go through the whole list, but you're looking at really strong growth over a very short period of 3 to 6 months. That is outshining, again, the more broader group of all skills and all certifications that we measure. Now, we also have other clusters for digital transformation. We pull out a lot of the ones that would apply to that, or cloud, or mobile computing, or big data analytics. But the one that's really on a tear right now is AI. And it's clear that companies are doing everything they can to try to build, this intensity and bench strength right now. Sure. And no amount of money is probably going to get them there, but they're trying.
Yeah. David, looking ahead, what skills and certifications do you believe are going to keep going up in demand and therefore pay? And also, how do you come up with these projections?
Okay, so the way that there's 2 ways that we do projections, and we have to be very careful to not go out too far, because we have done 2 to 3 year projections on skills. But then, because volatility lately has become so high, there's no way that we can accurately predict what's going to happen 2 or 3 years from now. So we tend to look at the next 6 to 12 months. So that's how we forecast. We also talk to a lot of people. I mean, we have these 4,400 employers that that contribute their data to, and it's largely HR departments that are doing that. But we also have access through our research network relationships to talk with people that are leading the IT organizations, leading the security line of business people. So we talk to them and we ask them, what's important? What are you buying? What do you need? What are you bulking up in, given your current strategies and objectives, whatever's driving you and your job. So that's what we do. We talk to people. So pretty much every quarter we have a report, which is called the IT Skills Demand and Pay Trends Report. And so what we take is the data, the current data that we see in the pay index, and we say, well, how does that compare to what we saw 3 months ago, 6 months ago, and 12 months ago? And we like to pull out the skills and certifications that are paying well above average right now. And by well above average, I mean right now, on average, of the 710 non-certified skills, the average bonus, call it a cash pay premium, is about the equivalent of 9.6% of base pay. So you're getting somewhere between 9 to 10% of base as a bonus. So we look at that, and then we look at, among those, which of those have shown substantial increases in pay over the last 6 months. So right now they're paying more than average. They've been growing steadily over the last 6 months. We have reason to believe that they're going to continue to grow. They're not going to fall off a cliff. So that's a reasonable thing as a research, is to say it's on an upward vector. It's paying above average. Let's look at some of these. And so that's a list that we publish. And to go through some of those, the number one, and I'll pull out some of the AI skills, but the number one in non-certified skills, again, you don't need a certification. It's just a company knows how to value that skill. Number one is data strategy right now. Number two is a Apache open source product called Flink. It's a distributed data processing platform used with big data applications. It's really pretty cool. And since advanced analytics and big data is huge right now, that's at the top. Number three position is deep learning that we just talked about as,
right.
It's paying about the equivalent about 21% of base pay, and it's grown about 11% in market value in the last 6 months. Some other ones I want to pull out, Amazon Athena, again, that's more of a big data skill. Predictive analytics and modeling are on this list. Let me go through a few other. Bioinformatics is on this list. Apache Airflow, security architecture and models. And in the 13th position, at about 20%, the equivalent of 20% of base pay, skills premium, and growing about 5% in the last 6 months, is large language models and LLM tuning and natural language processing. So, sprinkled in here are a number of AI skills, a number of big data skills. There's some cloud skills in here. In the 19th position, doing very well, or earning about on the equivalent of about 19% of base salary, is artificial intelligence, AI ops. I mentioned that before. Machine learning, Ethereum, which, as you know, is...
Well, can our listeners get access to some of this information? I'm sure they can't get the entire report.
Yeah, it goes on and on and on. What you should do is, we publish a report. Again, I mentioned it before, the IT Skills Demand and Pay Trends Report, and that's available to our customers only. That's a report that we produce only for our customers. They don't buy it. We give it to them for free, but we do send out a very long, probably the longest news release you've ever seen on this report, where we summarize the report. That is in public domain. We post it on our website at footepartners.com. If you contact me or anybody here, we will send a link to that news release. We do everything possible to get all this information out, particularly the trends, our analysis of the trends, our forecasts, what we think you ought to know about IT labor, IT jobs,
good,
vectors for skills, and the enterprise workforce in general. So it appeals, from what I can see, it's read by a lot of HR people. Read this report, a whole lot of them, because they get it for free. A lot of line of business people, and a lot of people who are in leadership positions in the IT organization, because they all have a dog in this hunt of people and skills. Every one of them, they all have their different roles. But for our audience, we are particularly well suited to talk to an HR audience. And in fact, the bulk of our of our customers here are HR organizations purchasing this benchmark information. So there you go.
David, last question. If you're a tech professional right now, what do you need to do to maximize your value to the organization, improve your career prospects, simply based on your IT skills? How can you increase your value to an employer as this big shift gains steam?
Well, number one, since we don't have time to go into detail on all the skills and certifications that, again, are paying above average and still growing in value, and then we have in our press release, we show all the ones that have gained 10% or more in value in the last, 6 months. The idea is, if you're trying to earn more money, we would say go after the skills that companies are investing in. They're literally telling us we're willing to pay additional bonus on top of your salary for these skills. And these are often skills that are not required for your job. Those would be covered under salary. But they're trying to, and to answer your question specifically, is companies want people who are more agile, more flexible, who are quick to learn, good critical thinking skills, stuff that we're going to talk about in another podcast when we talk about soft skills. We're talking mainly about harder skills here. We have unlimited information to digest on what these are paying in the trends, what's going up, what's going down, what our forecast is going forward. If you're looking for more money, definitely look at this list. And you can get this list through our news release. Again, you can pick that up, as I mentioned before. If you're looking at more attention, you're looking at maybe moving from an infrastructure engineering job into security. We can, again, in publicly available information, we can show you all the security. Say you're moving from network administration or systems engineering into cybersecurity. There are certifications that are very strong in that area. It'll give you a certain amount of leverage in your search. If you do have a certification in these areas, it means that you're serious about it. You can look at what those are. So that, I would say, is not necessarily making more money. That could be a lateral move, but certainly it shows you what companies are most valuing in terms of all the. I think we have over 150 security certifications. Some of them are pure garbage, and others are incredibly gold standard. You'll want to look at some of those. But in general, I think you need to look at a combination of hard and soft skills, and we are going to be talking about
Indeed.
Soft skills coming up. We're going to do a whole 45 minutes, and the reason why is because we've been told for quite a long time now, yeah, we need soft skills. We need soft skills. Now, companies are saying, we will literally not hire somebody who has a higher level of technical expertise because we have another candidate that has a slightly lower technical expertise, but scores very high in the soft skills that we're looking for. What I'm saying is that soft skills are worth money now. There's a demand for it. Companies are literally scanning job, CVs, and they're doing additional interviews to find people who have these skills, these softer skills. I mentioned a few: critical thinking, flexibility, agility, to be able to collaborate, high collaboration scores, to be able to move very quickly, work very successfully in teams, learn very quickly, and also have some of the technical chops. Again, I don't want to get into too much.
Let's leave people on the edge of their seats, a little bit of a cliffhanger. But I think is really interesting about this, David, is that this topic, the importance of soft skills, has come up several times in some of these conversations, a lot of articles I'm reading. But the difference here is that you're going to discuss how it shows up in the data, because these are just really conversations, what people are seeing, what they're sensing, but obviously you're going to talk about the trends you're actually seeing. So really looking forward to that. And another aspect of it, of course, is how do we differentiate, between what AI does, what bots do, what agents do, or we can do better, or skills that we bring to the table that are just not easily duplicated or can be duplicated by some of these technologies. So it's a great topic. Really looking forward to discussing that. Again,
yeah,
Dave,
and if I could just tie this whole thing up in a bow, companies are dying to find people with AI skills, people who can use AI in their current role in the company and are effective at doing that, working alongside AI, not in place.
Right.
And to be able to be an exemplar, a mentor, a trainer for others. I think in the last podcast, I talked about chief security officers telling us now we used to want marketing skills in the people we're hiring now. We want AI skills. We don't even want to hire people that don't have a certain level of AI knowledge and aptitude, because they realize that AI is just getting off the ground. They want to build a very strong foundation. They haven't defined the foundation yet, but that doesn't mean that as a listener of this, you can't go out and do a lot of sort of research, either informally or formally, and become more conversant and show that you can use AI in some aspect of your job, whether it's prompt engineering, which, by the way, is not an easy thing, or whether it's some other, AI transformation skill. Every element or area of technology, whether you're an engineer, you're a technician, you're an administrator, you're an analyst, you're an architect, they all have their own sort of AI-friendly skill areas,
Right.
and expertise areas.
Yeah.
Go find it.
For sure. David, great conversation. Thanks again.
Oh, thank you, Charles. I look forward to our next podcast.
Indeed. Same here. Today, I was joined by David Foote of the eponymous Foote Partners for the second in a series of talks David and I are having on what we're calling the big shift, several tectonic changes sweeping through the workplace, driven by several key high momentum technologies, including, of course, AI. This is Charles Epstein for the X Factor podcast. Thanks for listening.